Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this Oakland Sunshine training today, being put on by the Public Ethics Commission, which is specific on open meetings. My name is Jelani Killings. I'm an ethics analyst with the city's Public Ethics Commission. And really, our goal and our mission is to build and maintain public trust here in the city of Oakland by ensuring openness, honesty, integrity, and fairness here in city government. Today's training is specifically intended for paid and volunteer public servants, such as city staff, any board and commission members, city council members, as well as task force members who may lead and either participate in holding public meetings. And so as we introduce the Sunshine Ordinance, its original intent was in part to clarify and supplement the Brown Act. For those that may not be familiar with the Brown Act, it is a state law that provides transparency requirements at the local level. And so the Sunshine Ordinance is in place to supplement that state law, as well as to assure that the people of the city of Oakland can be fully informed and thereby retain control of the instruments of local government in their city. So in a nutshell, wanting to ensure that members and residents here in the city of Oakland are able to access public meetings, are able to access public information as it pertains to decisions that are being made on their behalf here in the city of Oakland. So diving in a little bit more about the purpose of the Sunshine Ordinance. One is to ensure that all meetings of a local body must be open and public, except for closed sessions that are authorized by law. And we'll dive a little bit more about local body and that definition in the upcoming slides. But the Sunshine Ordinance also ensures that any closed session authorizations that they are narrowly construed, because once again, we want to make sure that public meetings and decisions are made in the open and that the public is able to participate. It also ensures that persons must be permitted to attend open and public meetings, and that voting by secret ballot is prohibited. And lastly, the body must report all actions taken and the vote or abstention of each member present for the action. And so once again, as we go through this training today, and as we go through the intent, the purpose, and a lot of the provisions within the Sunshine Ordinance, it's important for us to note that it's about being transparent and making sure that all decision-making processes and ultimate actions are taken in a way that the public is able to participate and are properly notified. So before we dive into the provisions, one thing that we do like to share and for us to be mindful of as public servants is to always think about public perception and how would we react or respond if a decision or action that we took became a headline in the newspaper, and also kind of gauging in terms of public response to decisions that we may have made. And so open meeting law violations in the headlines, they can be embarrassing, but most of all, they damage public trust. And so this training is really intended to help us avoid any unethical or negative decisions that are contrary to ethics and transparency laws. And so we can see some of the headlines that have been in the newspaper or in local media as it pertains to maybe transparency violations. And so we just want to be mindful at all times about public perception as it relates to city matters and decision making. So now as we dive into the provisions of the Sunshine Ordinance, it's important to understand what constitutes a local body under local law. And so the Sunshine Ordinance clearly defines local bodies here in the city of Oakland. That would include Oakland City Council and Board of Port Commissioners. That also includes board, commission, and task forces that are established by the city charter, as well as board, commissions, and task forces that are established either by the city council or by the port board by any ordinance, resolution, or motion. It also includes any advisory board, commissioner, task force that is created and appointed by the mayor that would exist for longer than 12 months. And then also any standing committees of any of the above local bodies that have been mentioned on this slide. And so if you are a part of any of the bulleted local bodies, then you would be subject, or that body would be subject to the Sunshine Ordinance and the provisions that we'll discuss in this training today. So it's important to understand for all local bodies what constitutes a public meeting. And so any congregation of a majority of the members of a local body at the same time and location to do any of the following would constitute a public meeting if it is within or pertaining to the subject matter jurisdiction of that local body. So if they're meeting or gathered together at the same time and location to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within their jurisdiction, under the Sunshine Ordinance, that would constitute a public meeting. And so this really means that a meeting can occur at any time when a majority of members come together, even if it's informally during a conversation following a formal meeting that was agendized for that local body. So it is important to keep in mind that a majority of the members of a local body are not permitted to use a series of communications of any kind, whether that's directly or through intermediaries, to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item of business that is within their subject matter jurisdiction. And so we'll talk a little bit more about this, but usually the term that is used is a serial meeting, in which communications may happen between board members, and it may not be all at one time. But even if that information or those positions of those board members is communicated to a majority of the members, that would constitute a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance and transparency laws. And so we do want to be mindful of that at all times as well when we're having conversations with other members of our local body. So the Sunshine Ordinance does expressly bring out and share some rules around meal gatherings. And I know that there are a number of boards or commissions or even task forces that may meet prior to their meeting to have a meal, or even after the meeting. And so a meal gathering conducted before, during, or after a public meeting, it is considered part of that public meeting, and it must be properly noticed and made open to the public. And so once again, you have a majority of the members of a local body, if they're meeting together and items that are within their subject matter jurisdiction are being discussed, the public has a right to be informed and has a right to attend that gathering, which would also include meal gatherings that take place for that local body. So we do want all local bodies and members of local bodies to be aware, once again, that a meeting can occur if either a staff or member of a public body calls, faxes, or emails other members to develop a consensus regarding an item of business, even if members never communicate to each other directly. So once again, we noted before about serial meetings. So you may get in contact with one other board member discussing an item that is within under your jurisdiction, and that may be allowable under the Sunshine Ordinance and transparency laws. But if one of those members then goes and has the conversation with another member who may talk to someone else, or maybe had already had a conversation, and the majority of that local body is now in conversation regarding that item, that would constitute a serial meeting and then becomes a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance. So it is important to be mindful of the number of individuals on a local body that are discussing any information or discussing any item that is within their jurisdiction, because it can lead to potential violations of the Sunshine Ordinance. So in this slide, we'll talk a little bit about some actions that may violate or actually do violate open meeting laws. And so the first is any email communications among a quorum or more of the council or the committee regarding matters within their subject matters jurisdiction. And so it is important, as we're hearing the word or the term quorum, to understand what a quorum is. And unless otherwise provided, whether by some city ordinance or a resolution that created that public body, a majority of the members typically constitutes a quorum. And it's important to note that a quorum is necessary before a local body can take any formal action. And so as we're talking about this specific slide in terms of email communications amongst the quorum, it's important that if it's within their subject matter jurisdiction, that it would be a violation if a quorum of the members of that body have received that information or chimed in on that specific information as it relates to matters before their board. For example, as we're talking about quorum and the majority of members, the Public Ethics Commission, we do have a total of 7 members on our commission. And so 4 members is what represents or constitutes a quorum for our commission. And so we do advise that if you don't know what a quorum is for your board or commission, that you either ask your board staff member, you can ask your board or committee's chair, or you can ask the assigned attorney to your local body to make sure that you do not violate in terms of breaking a majority of members in terms of sharing of information. The second bullet on this slide talks as well as far as a violation of open meeting laws, that any conversations between a quorum of the council or a committee at any type of dinner, conference, or a party or other social or public event regarding matters within their subject matters jurisdiction. And so this states once again about really what constitutes a public meeting and making sure that they're properly agendized and that the public is able to attend these public meetings and that they can happen in informal places if you have a majority of the members at that same location discussing matters under their jurisdiction. Then the last bullet talks about for specifically for council aides, as well as city staff or city officials when they're communicating or asking about the positions of a quorum or more of the council or a specific committee, once again, regarding matters that are within their subject matter jurisdiction. And so it's important, once again, to always note that any meeting of a majority of the members or quorum of the members of a local body, if it isn't properly agendized and the public is not informed, if items are discussed that are within their subject matter jurisdiction, that it would be a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance if it is not properly noticed as a public meeting. So then we ask, what about communication among board members, either by telephone or social media? And this would be the same rules applying as far as the serial meetings and also discussing about matters within their subject matter jurisdiction. And so it is important to know that both are subject to sunshine laws. And then you kind of have to ask, who's to know if a quorum of a board discusses a matter in a conference call or a series of calls amongst other members. And so this is really where our understanding and also our commitment to upholding transparency laws comes into play, and making sure that we're mindful of these things. And that if someone were to obtain proof that such communication occurred amongst members of the board, that it would support a complaint that a violation of the law had occurred. And so it's also important as it regards to social media in that space, that we're aware that comments that are made by board members on specific matters within their jurisdiction, if comments are made on a post or something that is on social media, that is also subject to Sunshine Ordinance and transparency laws. And so a tip that we would like to share is that it's always good to be aware of the number of members with whom you discuss board-related matters. And you'll always, once again, want to keep that quorum number in mind. So next, we'll talk about some of the exceptions in the Sunshine Ordinance. And provided that council or committee members do not discuss any city business amongst themselves, a quorum or a majority of the members of a local body may attend a conference open to the public, or any open and public community meetings that are organized by community members and people in the people within the community and community organizations that are other than the city of Oakland, as well as open and notice meetings of another local agency, social or ceremonial events, as well as open and notice meetings of the legislative body of another local agency. And so this is really outlining that it is okay for a majority and quorum of members to be at the same location at the same time. But once again, they can't discuss matters that are within their subject matter jurisdiction, as that would then constitute a public meeting. So now we're going to go into some of the parameters that deal with the public and their access to public meetings of local bodies. And so all meetings of local bodies must be open and public. as established by the Sunshine Ordinance and transparency laws. And they must be established by some type of formal action regarding the time and the place for holding regular meetings. And they also must conduct such regular meetings in accordance with a resolution or some type of formal action. And so this is really to provide consistency and that the public is always aware of where public meetings are taking place and when they're taking place so that they can properly schedule and make accommodations to attend or to meaningfully participate. Meetings must be held within the city of Oakland's boundaries. This also includes any retreats, workshops, trainings, or any sessions or meal gatherings that are hosted by that local body. Those all must follow the same rules and guidelines as well. And that meetings should always be held on a weekday, really weekday evenings, whenever reasonably be possible. And so this is to ensure that there's compliance with not only state law, but federal law as well. And we want to make sure that there's access for the public in order attending meetings when it comes to those of the local body and decisions are being made. And so the Sunshine Ordinance also talks about making sure that there aren't barriers to attendance when it comes to public meetings as well. And so a local body cannot conduct any meeting, a conference, or other function in any facility which is inaccessible to persons with physical disabilities. So we want to make sure that there's access for all members of the community. And then the Sunshine Ordinance also restricts or prohibits the restriction of any attendance by members of the public by requiring any type of payment or statement of their name to attend the meeting. And so we can't put these barriers in place or these restrictions in place for members of the public when it comes to attending local public meetings. And any person attending an open meeting, this is something that is to be mindful as well, does have the right, and the local body cannot prohibit any recording or the photograph or broadcast of those proceedings. The public does have a right to broadcast or to record public meetings that are taking place. In regards to public testimony, it's important to note that a meeting of a local body must provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the local body on any items of interest to the public that are within that local body's subject matter jurisdiction. And so it also requires that there is an open forum session for each agendized meeting, whether it's regular or a special meeting. It must provide an opportunity for the public to comment on non-agenda matters, either at the beginning or the end of the meeting. And so I think it's really important as we're going through public testimony and talking about public access, that the importance of the Sunshine Ordinance and once again, transparency laws is to ensure that the public can meaningfully participate in decision-making that is taking place during public meetings. And so we want to make sure whether it's an agendized item or a non-agendized item, there is a requirement that the public is allowed to speak either during open forum or before an item is voted on by that local body. So some further points in regards to public testimony is that we cannot prohibit speakers from expressing public criticism about city services, procedures, or activities. It also ensures that members of the public must be allowed to speak on all items that are appearing on the agenda, even if the council or the committee removes that item. And then also that each member of the public that wishes to speak on an item must be allowed to speak prior to the vote on that item. It is important to note that the Brown Act and the Sunshine Ordinance do not require, and this is specifically for the City Council, to allow speakers on an item that was previously considered in a committee. And so, however, Rule 14 of the Council's Rules and Procedures on Public Speakers does allow speakers to speak on the same items in committee and at Council. Also, it's important to be mindful of for those that are dealing with chairing public meetings as it relates to public comments and public testimony and how that is regulated. If you ever find yourself in a position where you're not necessarily sure or you need some direction on how to regulate members of the public, whether it may be due to interruptions that are impeding orderly discussion, or a member of the public goes well beyond their time limit that may be set by the chair, or in the event that there may be some violence that has been incited, in order to understand how to regulate during those specific times in public testimony or to navigate those disruptions, we really advise that you would consult your city attorney to understand what can be done in those moments and how to continue to move the public meeting forward in an orderly fashion, at the same time respecting the rights of members of the public to give public testimony and to meaningfully participate. So next, for the latter portion of this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about agenda requirements and public noticing. And so meeting agendas must specify the date, the time, and the location of the meeting. And it has to give a brief and general description of each item of business to be discussed on that agenda. And so the agenda description typically provides a brief general description of the items that are to be discussed. It's important that it has clear and specific language to make sure that a person of average intelligence and education that is interested in these items is able to not only attend the meeting, but to speak to the information that is being provided. And it is also important to note that we should avoid all abbreviations and acronyms as much as possible when we are putting forward agenda items. And also, once again, that contact information should be made available on agendas, as well as information to request for any disability-related accommodations. The last note is that if an item is not on the agenda for a regular meeting, once again, it's important to note for that public body, that local body, that there may be no action or discussion about that item at the meeting if it is not properly agendized. So as it relates to agenda publishing and posting, it's important to note that agendas and agenda materials must be published online. We really stress this because it is not optional for agendas to be posted online. So all local bodies must post their agendas online and all the materials to be made available to the public. They must be posted on the outside of bulletin boards at City Hall as well. A complete packet must be filed with the Office of the City Clerk's Record Division. And then it also must be distributed to all of the board and commission voting members. There's also an important note that if any members of the public wish to subscribe to receive agendas, that they must be distributed as well to agenda subscribers, and that all Oakland board and commissions must post agendas once again on the city website. And so if you are unfamiliar or unsure if your agendas are being posted on the website, contact your representative, your city staff board member, to ensure that the public does have access to the agendas being posted online and that we are meeting all of the agenda publishing and posting guidelines set forth in the Sunshine Ordinance. So there are some specific guidelines for agenda noticing for the public. When it comes to all regular meetings of a local body, for specific bodies being the Public Ethics Commission, the City Council, as well as the Port of Board Commissioners, regular meetings require a 10-day notice to the public. For all other city boards and commissions in the city of Oakland, all other local bodies, there is a 72-hour notice to the public for agenda noticing. And then if there are any supplemental agendas, there also is a 72-hour notice for agendas that are supplemental. And so it is important to note that supplemental agendas do have a narrow scope. It's usually to add any type of emergency or urgent items if the required findings are made. It also is to provide any additional information that was not previously known to either the mayor or staff, as well as to correct any errors or omissions or clarify or conform the agenda title to reflect the nature of the action being taken. There are also other specific guidelines around supplemental agenda noticing, and we would make sure and to advise you that you see those requirements before any supplemental agenda postings. As it relates to special meetings, there is a 48-hour notice requirement for special meetings for agendas and all agenda-related materials. It is important to note that weekends and holidays cannot be counted towards the 48 hours. So you'll want to make sure that you're giving sufficient time in terms of the noticing requirements. There is a 5-day notice requirement for any special meeting that is scheduled to take place of a regular meeting that falls on a holiday. So once again, this is specific to special meetings that are in replacement of a regular meeting for the purpose that that regular meeting fell on a holiday. And then lastly, there's a 10-day notice requirement for any special meeting that is held off-site. So if you're having a special board retreat or you're having a meeting anywhere that is off-site from its normal location, there is a 10-day notice requirement, once again, to give the public ample notice about where that meeting is taking place, that they can make the accommodations necessary to meaningfully participate. So as we come to the end of the presentation outlining the Sunshine Ordinance and the provisions that are pertinent to open meetings here in the city of Oakland, it is important to understand that there are enforcement ramifications for violations of the Sunshine Ordinance. Complaint can be filed with the Public Ethics Commission that would allow an investigation and/or conduct public hearings following that investigation. It could require the local body to repost or reconsider the item if there is a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance, and legal action can be filed against the legislative body or the local body in regards to a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance. It's also important to know that other legal actions can be taken by any interested party, whether those are civil actions, as well as looking at other criminal penalties that may be leveraged if some of those actions are taken by members of the public. And lastly, we want to make sure that you're provided resources as it pertains to compliance with the Sunshine Ordinance. It's important to know that the Public Ethics Commission, we do provide an advice and assistance line in which the number on the screen can be utilized. You can also send us an email. We'd be happy to assist you as it comes to compliance with sunshine and transparency laws here in the city of Oakland. And we also do provide additional resources on our website, oaklandca.gov /PEC, where you can find additional information and resources. We also provide advisories as it pertains to compliance with laws, both ethics and transparency laws here in the city of Oakland. And then lastly, we just advise that if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to us either by phone or email us if you have any questions, even as it pertains to this training today. And once again, we just want to thank you for completing this training, for taking the time to understand the Sunshine Ordinance and transparency laws as we're building public trust here in the city of Oakland. And we hope that you'll reach out to our office if you ever have any questions, and that you will join us in building an ethical culture here in the city of Oakland and our service to the Oakland community. And with that, I would just like to say thank you for joining us today, and hope that you have all found this training to be beneficial, and look forward to working with you in building public trust here in the city of Oakland. Thank you.